Thanks for joining us for another episode of the Tea and Trails podcast, and thanks to Outdoor Active, Veloforte, Silver, Active Root, The Centurion, Run and Store, Protein Rebel, Sportshoes.com and Big Bobble Hats for supporting the show and our community. For the price of a cuppa, you can unlock some great perks that will help take some of the sting out of what can be an expensive sport. Last but not least, thanks to all our patrons who dig deep every month and literally keep the lights hot and the mics on. Go over to Patreon and check out all the amazing deals. Also, pop over to Summit Crazy if you would like some awesome Tea and Trails merch. I'm rocking the pumpkin hoodie again. Has yours arrived yet, Eddie?
No, he just felt up his pecs in a way I found a little bit offensive.
Nice handful there.
Oh, I'm sorry, everybody. Welcome to episode 20. Is it episode 20, Gary?
It is. I did a deliberate marketing technique last week. When you put a mistake on purpose, a typo, or what I did was announce episode 20 last week, it instigates conversation. All your keyboard warriors jump into action.
People love it. Oh, by the way, love the podcast, but you said this. By the way. Oh, so we got
then the algorithm goes crazy, and then
maybe it's good. Maybe it's like no publicity is bad publicity.
So I did it on purpose, everybody.
Yeah, keen ears will know we signed off on episode 20. It's all Gary's fault. Nothing is ever my fault. If you're new to the podcast, welcome. If you're binge listening, well done you. If you're old timer, hang in there. We'll get to the smut pretty soon. We've already got to the smut. Gary feeling up his breasticles. This week, another brew with the coaches, tales from the trails, reminding us why we all need to carry decent kit, and a lovely chat with Instagram handle Ultra Crazy, bringing a little bit of sparkle to all of our lives. Gary's a little bit poorly this week. Snivels. You're right there, buddy.
I'm struggling. I remember it was probably December last time I was poorly, so I can't really complain with me now. So I think I've done all right. But my week started well, turned to shit.
Do you know, on our podcast Spotify, it says explicit of our content. It does. I took a screenshot. I meant to send it to you. It's because of you. You and your dirty potty mouth.
Not the dry lips. Not it.
That's not explicit. I've got much worse than that on my sleeve.
But it ended well, which is good to hear. And what I did love, lots of listeners have started sharing their pictures of their snoods, not just in the UK too. I've seen some overseas snood. I
do not like the snood. It sounds like some sort of cover for
the other word. What's
Why
another
not? What
word?
are they going to do? It will start a conversation, and then we'll say, "Well, come on the show. Give us a code."
I don't want to go down that.
He's so law-abiding. For someone who I know has got a bit of a dodgy past, he's so law-abiding.
What? How do you know that?
I love seeing pictures though as well, and because of the history of the wipeable warm scarf as well, I love that everyone's taking it different places. I just love that. Yes, love it. Keep it coming.
I'd love to see. I think Denmark is the furthest I've seen so far. Yeah, it'd be great to see some people over I know they've gone to Canada, they've gone to Australia, USA too. So yeah, I can't wait to see those pictures. But what was nice, also some friends reached out and said they've been using their Patreon discount codes over on Protein Rebel and Active Root. So that was great to hear. And that inspired me. You know I love a Facebook poll, Eddie. That inspired me to pop a poll on Facebook. And it's been great to see that.
On a bank holiday, you get itchy fingers on a bank holiday Monday. You're like, oh, everyone's a bit quiet. What can I do? I'm going to rile Facebook up with a Facebook poll.
But yeah, a lot of love for X-Miles who are not actually a Patreon partner yet. So we'll reach out to those guys.
No pressure.
No pressure, yeah, and see if they come on board. But yeah, the deeds, let's go back to the week. What we did, I started off, I did my 25-minute threshold run, which was awesome. We went all the way to one end of Castle Dean, which is quite near sea level. And then we run back west, which is slowly going up and up and up and up and up. And I enjoyed that. I did my medium long run too. And I thought that's definitely got some value in training. And I'm going to do that going forward. But the downside of the medium long run is because Rex does like a sniff and a wee. He ain't coming with me on those.
Don't we all? Don't we all? Why can't he come? You just have a little stop for the...
No, this is it.
You'd
I
hate
just
running
want
with
to
me
run.
then and all my girlfriends because anything downhill, we've all had lots of babies who just stop and then, oh, no, we go downhill, stop and
I'm
empty
not
the
far behind you,
bladders.
to be honest. That's me too. But Rex is just, I think because, especially when you go down the Dean, there's like so many dogs down
Yeah,
there.
yeah. If I
Likes
run
to
with my
mark.
dogs like round the park, like round the sort of bit in town, round the river, and then like, yeah, Lindy, and then I'm running with her on the belt, the harness belt, and then she stops, and
Yeah.
you're like, oh my God,
Yeah.
oh,
Yeah.
that way. Yeah.
So anything with a bit more purpose, unfortunately, yeah,
Okay.
Rex has to
Yeah,
stay
I'm the
at home.
same.
Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday was okay. And then I just had 3 rubbish nights sleep and it completely wiped me out. 2, I just unsettled sleep. I don't know what it was, to be honest. And the third one, I'm not going to share it too much, but I had to basically help a friend out, which involved me, but not a friend, family member, which involved me staying up really, I think it was about 3 o'clock in the morning I got to bed,
Oh,
which wasn't good. And it just knocked me for 6. So my heart rate variability fell off a cliff. So I didn't do my second workout. I didn't do my long run. My mood, it's quite sad actually how much it knocked me for 6. And then I had a PayPal disaster where somebody else in, I think, America called Edwina Sutton received a significant amount of money gifted from me. And yeah, there's a few days where that was quite stressful because I didn't think I was going to get it back. But yeah, PayPal Angel over at PayPal, she saved my bacon and the money is slowly, surely making its way back to me, which...
Gareth,
wow.
the way it's poor, that's where we don't go into details, will we? Anyway,
Having to try to explain what was happening. Yeah, I took about 4 or 5 phone calls to PayPal, but eventually...
You don't like it, do you, Gary, when life throws curveballs?
Nope.
You do not like, you like the same, you like what you know, you like the same.
Meat and 2 veg.
Meat and 2 veg guy. And then the minute it goes off the rails a little bit, oh my God, it's all gone to...
I did a negative COVID test because I've been feeling rotten.
Oh, it's the same. We must have had the same cold because I did it too because I was like, there's no way this is a normal cold. This is the worst illness anyone's ever had.
Well, a few now group tested positive, so I thought, well, maybe I've got it too. And yeah, test was negative, apart from the fact I've got a stinking cold, which that is not going away just yet. But it was nice. Lisa and I, we went on a date night, went out for a Lebanese meal.
I love a bit of Lebanon, a bit of hummus, falafel.
Baba ganoush, that was nice.
Oh, baba ganoush. Oh, I could just eat that, all that greasy, oily aubergine.
Yeah. It made it, normally with kids, we always go to like a chain restaurant, Pizza Express or somewhere like that. But to go to an independent was a nice change. And we sat down for our meal at like 9:15 at night. So that is, I know.
Did you have a pre-date snack before that? Because I'd have had to have 6 o'clock tea.
Well, yeah, we did have a little, I think, fish finger sandwich earlier on just to keep us going. But the reason why I was so late is because George was at the cinema and that's what time the cinema started. So we had to do that.
So late. Bryn always says, we should be more like, we should take the kids to like have a curry and stuff. And I'm like, they just ruin it. Why take them to nice places like that? Take them to what they know, good old McDonald's. Yeah. And then we'll treat ourselves to the nice food. They can have that.
Well, this worked. Drop them off at the pictures. We go and have some nice food. I loved it. And what was funny on the way to the restaurant, I like this when I'm in a town centre and you just catch 30 seconds of somebody's conversation. Just a little snippet.
Where were you? Were you in Durham?
In Durham, yeah, in Durham. Bank holiday drinks. It was quite lively in Durham town centre that time of night. I really don't like being... Esme's like, Dad, why are you walking so fast? I'm like, I don't like drunk people.
No, I don't like drunk people. No, me neither. They give me if you try drunk people on skis, that's even worse. And it's like, Mum, why are you skiing? I'm like, no, don't. I can smell them. I can smell that folly deuce on these people.
And when they talk to you, it's like, I don't want to say the wrong thing in case it triggers them or something. But yeah, I just want to get out there as quick as possible. But I overheard this couple talking and she said to him, it was like about 20 seconds of a conversation, don't talk to me like I'm a dog. And I was just like, what is this? And all you say to me is sit, stay and wait. And then obviously we kept walking.
You've got to warn me when you're going to say, tea went everywhere.
But yeah, I just wonder what is going on in their life that she thinks he's talking to her like a dog.
I think I talk to the kids like they're dogs. That's exactly what I say. Sit, stay, wait. Don't eat that now. Don't eat that. Put that down. Put that down.
But yeah, it was funny. It's funny. But the dates, I've been moaning about it being such a terrible week. Still 68 miles. I did a quality session. I did a medium long run, 14 hours of running and about 6,500 feet of elevation. So
14 hours. What were you doing, Gary? 68 miles in 14 hours.
I don't know what I was doing, but yeah, so it started bad, started well, and middle of the week not so good, but ended
Still
okay.
a solid week.
Yeah. Come on, Eddie, you've had a great one. Come on, then.
For once, the Queen reigns. For once, she will reign it over Gary for just a week. I trod the line fine last week. I find. Again, this is personal, and this is from years and years of sport. I can run 10 hours a week with very little impact. That's my pretty much go-to. If I'm running 10 hours a week, that's my I don't really know, I can get on with life and do other stuff.
Yeah. Okay.
When I push it over running wise, then I can add more volume to that. I could do like skiing and cross training and add that. When I add more than 10 hours of running, that's when I get really tired. And so I added more hours and I pushed in my head, I'm like, I'm pushing the boundaries of human endurance, but really like 13 hours running is not pushing the boundaries of human endurance. It's just a lot of running, but I had a good week. I did a long run. I did a nice 10-mile steady run. Oh, I love a 10-mile steady run. It shows it's quite a long time to keep moving the legs when you just need to keep moving. And I did.
So what's your effort for a steady run? What are you looking at?
I just do everything on heart rate because around here there's nothing flat, and so you're always going up and down. So I have to be quite strict, especially when I'm working quite hard, that I don't push too hard, because unlike you, Gary, I have a real problem that I will push too hard for every session. So I have to be quite strict with myself to go easier, hard on the sessions, but not too hard. Otherwise, I then wipe myself out for not only the rest of the day, but for like 3 days afterwards. So my steady, I border on the line of like a 150 heart rate. That's really steady. I've still got scope to go 20 beats higher if I need to. It's just a little bit slightly ticking along, I call it.
Mine's about that. About my medium long run is about 130 to 146.
Yeah, so. And then yeah. And then I did 10 by 3 minutes on the road. I took it off the treadmill. Roads are nice and dry now. It did mean that it had 800 feet of climbing in, so it's not flat.
Yeah.
And so I was doing like 3 minutes slightly downhill, 3 minutes slightly uphill. The ones uphill, the hamstring pain as I turned from running downhill fast. Then I'd like jog I was giving myself just 1 minute because I like to keep that heart rate high.
Yeah.
And then the turn and go, oh my God, my hamstrings were on fire. I did it on Sunday. So it was the end of the week too. So I was pretty tired, and there were loads of people because it was dry. The roads are starting to be clear, out their bikes, kids out. And I'd run past people going, and then they'd be like, oh gosh, don't worry, small child. She's not, just move aside. And then I'd turn around and I'd have to go back up past them again. I'd see the same people like 5 times.
Yeah.
Anyway, it was good week. I don't know the deets obviously, but it was about 13 hours, almost 80 miles, almost 13,000 feet climbing, like a little bit more climbing, but we're still slightly limited on our hills. I also fitted in a massage, dear sweet Lord. Oh, so I saw my chiropractor one day who told me that I had the pelvis of an 80-year-old. He was actually, I said, my right ankle is worn and torn now. And he has to, about every 6 weeks, I find I can't run downhill as well. It doesn't give as much flexion. So I go in and he goes with it. Oh, and then it's about dreamy for about 3 weeks and I have to go back to him. Anyway, same with my pelvis. He said my pelvis was really out of line and he was literally out of breath when he's trying to get my back to move. I said to him, look, I'm feeling really stiff. Is it just like a perimenopause thing? Is it just old age? Is it my own? He's like, look, you're not going to just suddenly wake up and feel really stiff. And he was like, the damage you did from the spine to your tissues. And I think this is good. This is why I'm mentioning it to everybody. That rebuild your body is still trying to rebuild, and you're now back training, you idiot, because he thinks I'm an idiot. You're back training hard, so you're breaking it down again. So it's just getting back to being rebuilt. So like probably in hindsight, it would be better for me to be looking at doing an October race rather than a June race. And I could just be sort of really letting these tissues, but who wants to do that? We love racing.
I totally get your damage and your rebuilding, but then I see some other people.
Yes, I know. And this is it, because I'm like, well, why aren't they in pain? It's so unfair. But, my body is your body, isn't it? And it's also my body has had 3 children. Yeah. And so it's slightly battered anyway. So he's like, you've got to really, so he gave me a list of supplements. I was like, can you just email these to me? Because these words I've never even heard of before.
Goodness me.
And I talked to him about collagen, and I was like, what do you think? Because I've been reading about vegetarian, vegan collagen, and basically the studies say don't bother because it's not good enough. Somebody will point me in the direction of a study that says it is good enough. Please do. So he's like, you got to take the fish. One thing, the fish option, I really don't like fish, Gary. The smell of fish makes me, we all know what it smells like. And I've got a really potent, I can smell stuff, and I smell that collagen, and I'm like, anyway. So he was like, you've got, Eddie, if you want time in this body, he was like, you've either got to not be a vegetarian to get this protein in this body, or you've got to take some collagen. So
when I started taking it, that did gross me out a bit, this putting this fish collagen in drinks.
You don't like fishy stuff in your face either.
No, I love fishy stuff, but not in my coffee. But I can say 100% but I've not really got a sophisticated palate. I like or dislike things. That's probably as much as I break them down. But it didn't turn me stomach. Even I've had it in cold drinks too, and I thought that might be a bit gross. I've had it just in water and tea and coffee, and it's been
got used to it now.
Yeah, don't even think about it.
Well, I've started taking it. I've said, right, I'm going to try. I'm sorry, fish. But hopefully it's just fish that are old that they found in the sea. So, they're giving their bodies. Shut up. They're giving their bodies for science. Like, we give our organs when we die. And I'm taking the tablet form because I can't. It just needs to go down. It just needs to go
how much is that? Because I'm thinking about taking about 10 grams a day in total.
I have to take it 3 times a day.
Interesting.
Anyway, so I'm going to try it. I honestly have suffered the last couple of weeks as I've added the volume of this like terrible muscular soreness so I'm trying various things to try and help it out. So my God, the chiro did one on me. The next few days I was even stiffer than normal, but a bit of yoga, a bit of yoga and a bit of breathing doesn't help. Also, I think when in May here, the cloud is really low. The pressure's really low. It's really rainy and dreek, as they say in Scotland. And I don't think that helps with the spine and the movement and everything. And that's what I'm telling myself anyway. Anyway, good week. Then, a bit like you, we've got these endless bank holidays. I had another child off school on Friday. So I had 4 days with all these children. Keep saying to Bryn, I keep having to look after my children. It's really hampering my training.
George is on a teacher's strike. We've got George off today too.
Yes, well, then I heard on the news, I was like, so I can't whine too much because at least they're all at school for 2 days this week.
Yeah.
Anyway, I love the little darlings. And they're now at that age where they've got their own stuff to do. And the littlest one loves riding a bike. So she will come as long as there's no agenda on the bike ride and we can stop at every flower and stick and bird and just to have a general chat, maybe to sing a song. Yeah. But that makes it a little bit easier than when they're tiny and you've got them at home and you literally can't escape at all. So it was a good week. I started, so yesterday, Monday, I was going to do a couple of easy runs. I did one easy run and then I started tidying up upstairs and the day ran away with me. But I read a very interesting thing. So last week, I didn't do any cleaning or tidying. I just generally kept the house going, a bit of shopping, pushed the Hoover around once, wiped a few basins. I let that, what I would say, my cleaning dial down. And I read a very interesting article in the Telegraph because that's my That's my read of choice. Don't judge me.
You're not the Daily Star.
I do that on Instagram. I keep up on this. I just like the Telegraph for all the English, catch up on my English. Anyway, I read this interesting article, and it's by a lady called Rebecca Anderton Davis. Shifting the Dials, it's called. She's written a book. I don't think I need to read the book now. I've read the articles. But she talks about dials. She's a big career lady, a bit like me, career, business driven. Power lady. She talks about having this dashboard with these dials on, and I've often thought of this, but she writes it a lot better about your dials having your important stuff, your family, your work, our training. Obviously, our training would be up there. Yeah. All the things, and moving those dials like in your head, so that then you don't feel guilty about, okay, that's taken a bit of hit. Family's taken a bit of hit. Because I know lots of people find the juggle really hard. I find turning the dial down on cleaning very easy. But when you work from home as well, I do get a bit anxious about the fact that part of my role, because I'm the parent that's at home all the time, is I task myself to keep the house clean and tidy, and I've got 3 children and, clothes and laundry, and it's a lot to manage. I know that sounds stupid, but I feel it's part of my role as a mum. But when I'm training really hard, I just do not have the energy to then clean the fridge out and stuff like that. But in my head, if I turn that dial down and go, well, this week, there's not going to be energy for that because the training dial's gone up. So yesterday I thought, okay, instead of doing my training, I'm going to dial that dial down. I'm going to blitz those kids' bedrooms to within an inch of their life. I won't go into details about what I found in their bedrooms, but
Can your kids flush the toilets sometimes?
Oh my God, let's not. They can flush the toilet. Do you know they know how to flush the toilet? One of them is a teenager, but whether they choose to or not. Anyway, yes, the kids' bathroom. Oh my God. I mean, what? Anyway, so I turned the dial up on that and I sorted those bedrooms, and then I was like, so I can leave that now for 2 weeks and that will be fine. I don't need to go into their bedrooms again. I just thought that was interesting. Perhaps people want to think about that.
I'm so visual. I think I'd like to physically make myself 4 dials and name them.
What would be on your dials?
My tidying would be always set at about 2. I'm not really that. It's a 2 until somebody knocks on the door and it's like, oh shit, where they're gonna go. Yeah, the house. Family, it's the classic house family work training. That's basically.
I know that's basically, isn't it? Yeah. Friends and social life.
Oh goodness me, yeah, friends.
I have that. I try and like all my friends. Unless you're a runner, then it's really limited time on Eddie's schedule. We need to be runs, or you've got dogs. Need to be able to. We can't just sit and. I'm
just thinking, actually, 99% of my friends are runners, so that's why I'm satisfying.
Yeah. Anyway, maybe take a look at a book, or perhaps it will help you as well. Like my ironing dial, that's been at 0 for many, many years. Anyway, it was good. It's a good week. So, and then I've done my hill reps this morning, and I just dialed my hill. They were big hill reps, 4 by 15 minutes up a hill, up a road. Yeah, I wasn't sure. All the way up. I wasn't sure if I was going to go on road or trail. So I wore my trail shoes and then I ran the whole thing on road, which by the end I was like, oh. And the only car I saw was a Tour de France recce vehicle. It had a little flashing light on the top and it said Tour de France exciting. On it. A couple of guys in high vis, really sure what they're doing. But they went past me and it was, I just kept it nice and easy, but I felt strong. But it was 800 meters up. Good. Got to the top. Velo Forte packet, half a packet of gel shots. I would have eaten the whole packet, but there were only 3 left. Dropped 2, but just wiped them on my leggings and ate them because
5-second rule.
I'm disgusting like that. But that was 5.5 miles up. And I finished the session at just over an hour. And then I was like, you messaged me, I think. And we're like, I'm ready to record. I was like, oh, I could. I've got a little run back down. So then I was like, running back down. But I was like, Gary, you won't mind waiting. Don't push, because then that's the sort of thing you end up like pinging a calf muscle because you worked hard. I was like, keep it steady, Eddie. Keep it steady. Anyway, another big week. Tick them off. There's only 3 or 4 big weeks, so stop whining about it, Eddie. Turn those dials up. Let's get into it.
But what's the week? What's the date of the South Downs?
Oh, you're just like Bryn. Bryn was like, I don't even know what you're training for. What are you doing, a race? I was like, you need to listen to the podcast if you want to know my news. June the 10th.
Okay. Oh, It's my birthday.
Oh my goodness. I will wear happy birthday. I was going to say something so inappropriate then.
Big jokes.
Happy birthday banner. A happy birthday banner to Gary. Right. Let's be more appropriate. Let's get some professionalism that people expect on this podcast, and let's go hit up the brew with the coaches.
Well, how good was the audio last week? Thanks again to all our patrons.
Crisp and clear, wasn't it?
Jay Butterfield has a question about coming back to running 2 years after a bilateral fusion. I'm so pleased Rebecca has joined our coaches. This week's brew with the coaches question comes from Jay Butterfield. Now, Jay is coming back to running after 2 years after a bilateral MTPJ fusion, both big toes fused. Is there any advice out there for runners with this? I'm interested to know how strong the fusions are and if I can push it when it comes to running. Although the pain from arthritis has stopped, I still get aches in my toes and I'm not sure if I should run at all. Finally, I used to enjoy yoga, but find it hard now that I cannot bend my big toes. Are there any recommended exercises to keep flexibility with this type of injury?
Hi, Jay. Thanks for this question. Essentially, to answer the question about whether or not how strong the fusions are, they are very strong. The question about whether or not you can run after this procedure, people do get back to running. It's a common procedure and it's something people can run afterwards. There's a couple of caveats on that. Obviously, it depends on the advice you were given by your surgeon at the time, whether or not they had any strong opinions about how well the fusion had taken. So that's the first thing. How strong is the fusion? How well did it take at the time? Were there any complications, any infections, anything like that? Assuming the recovery was really smooth and there was no problems, then there's no problem with you returning to running. You're not going to be able to break that fusion unless you're in sort of a major trauma situation, like you've jumped out of an aeroplane, parachute has gone wrong, that sort of thing would break it. But normal running downhill, uphill, that's not going to put stress on the metalwork to the point where it's going to break. But your running style will have changed because you now can't bend that joint of your toe. You can bend the other joint, but you can't now bend or extend that joint in the same way. So that might be why things are still a little bit achy. But I think if there's any concern, that's the first protocol, is just to make sure the surgeon was happy with the procedure. And then after that, it's sort of adapting to what you're left with in terms of the movement. I don't know if you've had podiatry intervention, but that's something that can be looked at as well. Is there anything to do with shoe fit, that sort of thing, which can just make that a little bit more comfortable? Is there a different style of shoe which just helps the fact that you can't toe off with your gait in the same way that you could before? I might hand over to our resident yoga expert for the next part of the question. But essentially, for me, that would come down to, again, postures where you don't require you to go up onto that toe should be possible. So anything which keeps your foot in a neutral position should be fine. But yeah, I think in summary, yes, people get back to running. We commonly see this, and people do after 6-12 months should be able to run again. It should be strong enough for you to do even off-road running, but you just need to make sure the surgeon was completely happy with your recovery and it was a standard, uncomplicated procedure.
With that toe that's then fused, like when you go through the foot, where does it sort of limit the movement? Because I'm trying to imagine
you can't toe off. So your foot, that knuckle joint is completely straight. You can't bend over the top of it in the same way. You've got movement at your other joint, the one below it, but you haven't got any movement at that joint. So it does. And he's had them done on both sides as well. So he's now got that on both. Which is why it may be just causing some discomfort, because that's a lot to get used to.
Presumably the calf and the soleus and everything, you start going, you're going
to have to work around it.
Yeah, your body's very clever, won't it? And it will readjust that gait to sort of go around it. And so if you sort of pronate in and your tendency is to try and push off that might be why I'd suggest seeing a podiatrist to maybe get you on a treadmill, get a gait assessment, see how it's altered things.
and then see if there's anything they can do just to sort of make that as smooth as possible, that toe off movement.
And also perhaps some strengthening exercises, because all those tiny little, even like all the proprioception, everything is going to be different, isn't it? So on a wobble board, perhaps on a Bosu ball as well, looking at working that joint, it's going to be working slightly different. So if you haven't had, I presume from the surgery, you probably get physio then after it, but maybe a physio who's worked with runners who then want to go on to have a long life running as well. I've got arthritis in both my big toes when I had MRIs, and the doctor said, you've got about 15 years, Eddie. Go. And so I was like, okay, I've got 15 years in my toes. I would say for the yoga, like all of us when we're doing yoga, and Trish is starting her yoga journey only tonight, you just find what works for you. So obviously, like, the downward dog is hard because you're trying to go through your toes as well, but it is the movement that you've got to do running. So I would say just find out what, and if I can't do something in yoga, I don't do it. I go back, and the things that I find really hard, like sitting cross-legged, even the child's pose, some days I find that hard. Just go and do what you can. And if you find the more you do, you'll find, okay, I know I can't do that. But a lot of yoga movements is putting the foot flat on the floor and feeling through the floor with all the toes. And that must be so important if now you've lost that toe joint, because the other toes have got to work so hard now to compensate for the fact that big toe is basically just there as a stabilization, isn't it? It's just there as a tripod.
Yeah.
Jay, I hope that helps. Trish, Russell?
I have nothing. I have no experience with this. Sorry.
You've not got fused big toes, but it comes up in our Facebook group about people have got arthritis in their toes, and what to do and how much they can push through pain and stuff. So there will be, as us crazy trail runners, the new generation going through, I think we'll find more and more of us are like, how do we cope with this? So Jay, let us know how it goes. Let us know if any of that is useful and how you're doing. And yeah, do put something on the Facebook group, because there is people we'd like to learn and we'd like to know. And I'm sure other people that perhaps are going to go through this procedure, been through this procedure, or have arthritis in their toes, they might be able to offer useful stuff as well. I feel bad whining about my sore muscles when Jay's got fused big toes.
Yeah, I was struggling when I read the question this year, I was struggling to visualize it because it's something I've never ever experienced.
When I stress fractured my foot, and the doctor looked at my MRIs and he was like, "Yeah, you've got arthritis in your big toes. They're not gonna, and bunions forming." He's like, "You've not got long on those feet before you're gonna need some sort of." I just nodded. I was like, yeah, I'll be fine. This week, we talked to Karen Nicol, all things backyard ultra, guide running, and just being a general awesome Scottish radiator. What a lovely chat we had. What a lovely lady. It's going to be a little sparkle to your ears. Enjoy our chat with Karen. We are delighted to welcome onto the show this week, Karen Nicol. Where are you? What's the view from your window? I'm laughing because it's quite dark in the room that you're in. And have you been for a run today?
Hi, thank you for having me. I'm just in the banks of Loch Lomond in Scotland, so about 20 miles north of Glasgow. The view from my window is actually up my favourite hill to run. It's a trail called the Stony Mullen. So I have a garage conversion, which is now my office. I work from home. Whoa. And my office looks onto my favourite hill. So yeah, I'm super blessed with that.
Oh, wow.
And no, I haven't run today. I never run on a Tuesday, which maybe we'll talk about later. But I did my strength workout this morning, which was good. So yeah, Tuesday's always a rest day for me.
Hi, Karen. Could you share with us a little bit about your journey as a runner, how you got into ultra running? And yeah, I think they're crazy. The whole format for me, I find mind-boggling. But yeah, the backyard ultras too.
Yeah, so I've been running for about maybe 10 years now. I started to run after I had my second son, Alex. So I've got two boys. Will is 19, Alex is 15. And after I had Alex, I started running to lose the baby weight. Still sort of aiming to do that. Not quite got there yet, but we're nearly there.
I like the way you've taken it slow. There's no rush. There's no rush to pop back into shape.
Exactly. So I took up running for that and just sort of gradually worked my way through. I did a 10K, did a half marathon. We've got lots of runs on the islands here in Scotland. So my first half marathon was out in Barra, which was just amazing. So I fell in love very quickly with the social side of running because there's a big sort of ceilidh and party after the half marathon in Barra. So quite quickly it became not just exercise, but also the sort of social side and meeting new people through running, which I loved. Yeah, and then I went on to do a couple of marathons, and my first ultra was a race called the Devil of the Highlands, which is on the West Highland Way, which is an iconic trail here. And I did that, oh God, when would that have been? Maybe about 2014, I think I did my first ultra, and did lots of sort of trail ultras, aiming to run the full West Highland Way, which is 96 miles, which I did, I think that was 2016. And then I got introduced to looped races. The first one that I did was Glenmore 24, which is a 24-hour looped trail race, which I love. And sadly, I fell in love with the loop and running in circles, which lots of people, for them, it's their idea of hell, the monotony of sort of going round and round and round. But yeah, I loved it. So I did Glenmore 24, I did Edinburgh 24, which is another looped race. I've done a couple of track races. So I've done the Crawley 6-hour and 12-hour. I'm down to do a 24-hour track race this year. So doing one down in London on the 1st of October, I think it is.
Which one is that one? Is that Tooting?
It's at Battersea Park.
Battersea, yeah. Okay.
So I'm doing that with my friend Debbie, who's a
I was going to say, have you got any friends that might have talked you into doing that?
So we're doing that at the beginning of October, which I'm really looking forward to, actually, because as I say, I've done 6 and 12 on the track, and it felt like I sort of had to complete the...
You totally did.
Yeah,
what is it about the loops that you love so much?
Well, I love trail running, but I also like that sort of comfort and security of coming back to the same point each time. Mm-hmm. So quite often when the boys were a bit younger, they would come to races with me. So it would just be easy that I would be back every sort of 4 miles, or with the Backyard Ultra, as we'll talk about in a second, every hour, I would be back to the same point. So I don't know if it's just that security for me that I can then check in and make sure everybody's okay. My husband, Scott, he supports me. So just coming back to see him every hour as well. I just like the comfort of it. I'm quite strong mentally, I think. So maybe my mental strength is a bit stronger than my running strength. I'm not sure, but it just seemed to work for me, and it was just something that I enjoyed doing. Yeah, and that led into the Backyards, which was something I hadn't actually heard of at all until last year or the year before. I think I first heard about a Backyard Ultra. I had quite a period out of running. I've got quite a significant foot injury. I've got a torn plantar plate, and that sort of stopped me running for a while. I also broke my foot, and I was in a stability boot for 3 months. So I had quite a long period out of running, and then sort of gradually built back up to running, just being ready to race again when the world shut down in 2020. So all the races that I had entered after I had done my rehab and was looking forward to it, they all got cancelled. And then when the world opened up again, there was an event called the Four Nations for the Backyard Ultra in the UK. So I had received an email, and I think because I had done okay at sort of a few looped events, they had got in touch with me to see if I wanted to be part of a team that they were pulling together for the Four Nations event. And that really excited me, because I hadn't raced for a while, and the thought of being involved in a team and doing it with other people, and again it was a looped course, which sort of ticked the box for me. So not really knowing what I was letting myself in for, I said, yeah, that sounds great. And then the backyard sort of captured me, and I'm still there. I'm still sort of running in circles and doing backyard ultras. I've done 4 now. So yeah, that was the sort of journey to get towards the backyard ultra.
I've never done a backyard, but as a cross-country runner, it's probably one of the only times as a runner you really get to go as a team. And again, I've never done this looped event, but I can totally get what you're saying about having that maybe something to look forward to at the end of the lap, or a safe environment. Or for somebody who's first ultra, and sometimes like a point to point, that could be super, super intimidating. But yeah, to come back every lap, I'd really like the sound of that. We talked about Lakeland 100 just before we recorded. I can focus on that. I've got the elevation, I know the distance, I know roughly, hopefully, what my goal time is. For the backyard ultra, you're relying on somebody else to go a certain distance, so you can go a certain distance too. How do you train for something that's unknown, really?
Yeah, I think my training for it has changed quite a lot. So when I did the first one, that was, when was that? Last February, I think it was. So just
Karen,
over a year ago.
before you carry on, can you just explain to people what the backyard ultra is? Because there might be people listening going, why is she running around an American yard?
Yeah, some people do still think that I just run around my back garden, but that's not the case. So yeah, the backyard ultra, it's a format that was set up by Laz, who organises the Barkley Marathons, and it's a race format where you run, I think the exact distance is 4.167 miles. So it's 4.167 miles every hour on the hour. So you can basically take the full hour to run the 4.167 miles, or you can run it quicker than that. And obviously, if you run it quicker than that, you have recovery period before you get back out again. As Gary said, there's no finishing line, there's no set distance, there's no set time. It's basically a sort of last one standing event where you just run for as long as you possibly can, going out on the hour every hour to run that 4.167 miles. And I think it's that sort of funny distance, because if you hit the 24 loops, so they call each loop a yard. So if you hit the 24 yards, you get to 100 miles. And I think that's why the distance was set at 4.167 miles. So that's the backyard. And I did my first one, as I say, it was about a year ago over in Ireland. It was an event in Castle Ward, and that was the first event as part of the Four Nations, where I ran with the team, as I mentioned. And then I did have a target, actually. So I went into that with a target of wanting to run for 24 hours or 24 yards. I was part of the team, and as I said, I had quite a long time out from racing due to injury and then COVID. And I think I had a bit of that sort of, maybe I'm not good enough to be on the team. Why have they picked me to run for Team Scotland? I don't think I'm good enough. And I sort of talked myself round that if I could keep going for 24 hours, then I would justify my spot on the team. And some people in our sort of WhatsApp group chat were talking about going for like 3 days and stuff. And I was like, oh my goodness, there's no way I'm going to last for that amount of time. I'm taking my son with me. We've got a holiday planned. Like, we're planning on going for pizza the next day.
Yeah.
And, but yeah, I had set this sort of internal target for me to run for 24 hours. And no surprise that when I got to 24 hours, what did I do? I stopped. So yeah, I think it was good to have a target for the first one, but that's also a big mistake with that type of race format, because if you set yourself a target, as soon as you hit it,
it's like hill reps, isn't it?
Yeah.
It's like hill reps. If you say you're going to do 10, you can do 10, but no more.
Exactly.
No more.
Exactly. Yeah. So I came in yard 24, and my husband Scott was supporting me, and he was like, one more loop. And I was like, nah, I think I'm done now. I think we'll go and get some pizza and we'll take Alex back. So yeah, it was a learning process to realise that setting a target in that type of event is not the best thing to do. So when I went into the most recent one that I've done, so I did one just in March this year down at Sherwood Pines, and I didn't have a target then. It was basically, let's just see how long we can go for, and in that event I went for 35 hours, so I hit 35 yards before stopping then. So yeah, it's been a bit of a a journey to go from the first one to the most recent ones. I've done 4 in total now, so it's been great. Loved it.
Yeah.
You said before your training had changed from doing the first one. How did you train for the first one, and then how did it change as you went through the sort of cycle of?
So when I trained for the first one, I guess I did it very similar to training for the 24-hour sort of trail races that I've done. So I would just do my sort of normal ultra training, I think, that had been ingrained into me. So Tuesday was always speed work, Thursday was always hills, Saturday was a long run. So I would run maybe anything up to sort of 4 or 5 hours on a Saturday. And then Sunday would be a sort of recovery run, and I just trained for it like training for a normal race. When I went into my most recent backyard, I trained for it very differently. So there was a big change in the sort of run volume. So I went from running 6 days a week and cut that down to running 4 days a week. And my weekly mileage dropped to about 35 miles a week. So there was like a big cut in run volume, which was a bit of a surprise when you think, well, I'm aiming to run further. Why am I therefore training shorter? Yeah. But it all started to make sense as I went through the process. So cut down my run volume, did more strength work, a lot more strength work. I would do a strength session maybe 3 times a week that I would work on. Brought some yoga into my training as well, which was nice. So yeah, all the training changed quite significantly. The long run got cut short as well. So the long run was cut to maybe 2 hours, 3 hours maximum. And over the winter, it was all MAF-based running. So really low heart rate, sort of really slow running. So working out like your maximum aerobic function. So I would maybe run for like 8 minutes really slowly, and then take a 2-minute walk break to bring the heart rate all the way back down again. And I would repeat that for 3 hours. So I would call my long run jumping on the MAF happy bus, you know. It was just like
did you enjoy that? Because us as runners, we're programmed to be like more is good, but you enjoyed that change. I love a good walk break.
Absolutely.
I put them in all the time.
What was the shift, or why? Was it a coach's decision that you I see.
Yeah, so I switched coach. I'm now coached by a guy called Marcus Smith at Inner Fight Endurance, and I had got in touch with Marcus. I'd got in touch with him before I did my 3rd backyard. I wasn't run coached by him then, but I had got in touch with him to help me sort of work on the mindset of the backyard. He had coached a guy called Keith Russell, who won the event out at Castle Ward that I had done, and Keith then went on to set the world record out at the Backyard Masters in Germany. I think he ran for something crazy like 95 hours or 95 yards. It was just phenomenal when he set the world record at the time. It's now been broken again, but Keith did set it then. And he was coached by this guy called Marcus. I followed him on Instagram, and I got in touch with Marcus to ask if he could help me work a bit on the sort of mental side of training for the backyard. And he did, and we sort of worked together a lot on how to sort of prepare mentally for that type of event. And then I think it was in September last year that he took on my run coaching as well. So that's when all the changes kicked in about the reduced volume, the low heart rate running, more strength work, more yoga, just like a really chilled out approach to training, which was really lovely. But then I think he sort of pulled me into this false sense of security of thinking that, I was on this MAF happy bus and everything was super lovely. And then he introduced me to what he calls his simulation weekends, and they were pretty horrific.
Sounds like some scary movie.
Yeah, it was. It definitely was a scary movie, Eddie. It was awful.
Oh, well then, what is a simulation weekend? This sounds
a simulation weekend, we'll come back to what we were talking about earlier. When I trained for the first backyard, I just did normal sort of training for a normal race, a normal 24-hour, whereas the backyard's quite different because you start and stop every hour, and the way that I trained for it and the simulation weekends basically simulated the race. So I would do backyard specific type training. So the first simulation weekend I did involved a 12-hour run and that 12-hour run started at 11 o'clock on a Friday night. So I went out at 11 o'clock on a Friday night in January in Scotland in the pouring rain, freezing cold, and I ran for 12 hours backyard style. So it was basically on the hour, every hour, I went out and ran that 4.167 mile loop, basically around my house.
Did your husband keep saying, will you just shut the front door quietly when you come in? I've asked you 4 times now.
No, he just went to his bed, Eddie. He wasn't even awake. He was just like
He's sensible. I'm with him. I'd be the same.
So yeah, that was pretty tough. In fact, it was really tough. It was way tougher than a race. When I spoke to Marcus after it, yeah, I said that to him. I said, I found that way tougher than like the backyard race where I had done like 29 yards at the Scottish backyard race. And I found the 12 yards that I did on my own in that simulation weekend much, much harder, because I was basically just running out our local streets like for 12 hours through the night, like an absolute lunatic in the pouring rain, and it was freezing cold. And yeah, there was no point to it. It just seemed as if it was like a completely pointless thing to do. But obviously it wasn't. What it was teaching me was that ability to get back on the start line every hour, regardless of what was happening. And it wasn't just about the running, it was also about the sort of admin that's important for the backyard. So say you had, I don't know, 12 to 15 minutes recovery time each loop. It was being able to sort everything during that time. So get changed, sort any feet issues, have some nutrition, maybe have a quick power nap. And through the simulation weekends, I was able to practice doing that so that when I went into the race, it felt a bit more normal rather than training for an event that doesn't feel normal. So yeah, we just basically simulated the race structure, and that was really beneficial. And I think that's
Can you
what
actually
helped.
sleep in that small amount of time?
I could nap, yeah. I quickly developed the ability to power nap. I talked about doing yoga. So I think with the yoga, what helped is I did yoga with a guy called Mark, and he taught me lots of sort of breathing techniques that would help you just to switch off, like just to quieten the mind. It was like simple things like I would say in my head, I'm breathing in, I know I'm breathing in, I'm breathing out, I know I'm breathing out. And I would just repeat that in my head, and it means all the other crazy thoughts that were going around would just disappear.
Because that must be the big, otherwise you're on all the time, aren't you? Because once you get back on the lap, you have to be on, don't you, to keep moving to make that cut-off time. And I love that idea.
Yeah, so I would just sort of turn everything off. When I did the simulation weekend, as I say, Scott was sleeping, so he wasn't supporting me. I don't blame him. But I would set the alarm on my phone. So I would like come in and maybe I would have 15 minutes until I had to go back out on the next lap. So I would set the alarm on my phone to go off when I had like 3 minutes left to go, because when you do the actual backyard race, they ring a bell sort of with 3 minutes to go, 2 minutes to go. No, it's a whistle actually. It's a whistle that they blow. 3 minutes to go, 2 minutes to go, and 1 minute to go. Every time I hear a whistle blow now, I get PTSD. It's like, oh my God, I've got to go somewhere. But I set my alarm so that it would go off with the 3 minutes to go. And again, that allowed me to sort of simulate if I was having a nap, the alarm would wake me up, and then just sort of get everything ready to go back out again. So yeah, although those simulation weekends were super duper tough, they taught me loads, and I found them really beneficial to go into the race.
Did Scott come down in the morning down to your hallway and go, what the hell has happened?
I kept thinking he's going to get up and come and run a couple of loops with me, isn't he? He's definitely going to do that, but no. He didn't.
I think I'd be scared. Running, if I could find a 4 mile loop where I live, I think at that time of night or in the morning, it'd be really strange, because it'd be so uncomfortable for me to run trails, fine, but around a residential area, I'd be a bit.
Yeah,
a bit
I
scared.
ran around the residential area because I don't like running on my own in the dark. I think lots of people overall don't like running on their own in the dark. So yeah, we've got loads of beautiful trails, but I didn't go anywhere near them. I literally ran around the streets and around the houses. And yeah, I got lots of strange looks from the postmen and the milkmen and all these people that sort
Coming
of
back
kept
onto
me.
shift.
Why is she still here? Like McDonald's, I think McDonald's opens at like 5 a.m, and like the people at McDonald's just kept looking at me whizzing past, like, what's she doing?
I bet the race felt like a real treat, though, that
It
you've gone
did.
from that being super quiet to then all this support and people around. That would have felt
It
awesome.
definitely did, Gary. And as I say, I found the simulation weekend really hard. And I think, again, that was sort of Marcus's sadistic reasoning. It was like, I think he wanted me to feel that training was tough to do these things, and therefore racing felt easier. And racing definitely did feel easier.
It's a hard balance, isn't it? Because I know lots of people that do run through the night. They're like, should we practice running through the night? And it's so horrendous by yourself. And then you have the knock on of the next, presumably then the rest of the weekend, you're a bit useless for anything because you've missed a night's sleep and then you're tired and getting the balance right. You said earlier about Marcus helping you mentally with stuff. Is there anything that you would be willing to like share that perhaps he worked with you or you talked about that other people might find interesting, or that perhaps other people find hard that you addressed with him?
Yeah, I think the whole focus was just on relaxing more, like just becoming way more relaxed in life. I think when I, which is hard, isn't it? But I definitely have become way more relaxed in life through this sort of process, which has been great. So there was a couple of really simple things, like a lot of it would be focusing on practicing gratitude, which I know to some people sounds a bit woofy, but it was so important to do that every day. You know, like every morning I wake up, I write a gratitude journal. It's the very first thing that I do. I read a book called The Daily Stoic every morning when I wake up as well.
I've got that by my bed.
Yeah, it's such a lovely book. So I think I'm the second year through it now. So yeah, and I just sit in morning solitude. That was another thing that he sort of instilled with me, is to have some alone time. I think it's really easy for our alarm to go off and like we just then go straight into high alert. Like, I need to get the kids sorted, I need to get me sorted, I need to get my run done. Before you know it, you're operating in this really high cortisol level. So that all stopped. So I wouldn't touch my phone when I got up in the morning. I don't look at it now. And the very first thing that I do is I go and sit in solitude on my own with a coffee. If it's nice, I sit outside. We've got a nice outside area. And I literally just listen to the birds tweet and look out, have my coffee, write my gratitude journal, read my daily stoic. And it can be just 5 minutes if I'm sort of pushed for time, but I always make sure that I have that 5 minutes to start the day. And then again, just the breathing that we spoke about from the yoga, you know, just that ability to even sit and take like 3 big deep breaths and then think, okay, I'm totally ready to approach the day now. And when the stress does kick in, then I go back to like the 3 things that maybe I've written in my gratitude journal that are important. And if I'm starting to get stressed about something that's no longer important to me, then I just sort of let that stress pass me by and think, you know, that's not one of my key objectives from today, so let's not worry about it. So yeah, I think a lot of it was just removing stress from life. I think he picked up when we started working together that I was on high alert most of the time, and in a race I was really stressed too. Like when I did the first backyard, I remember literally shouting at Scott, bless him, like, you need to be quicker and bring me food, hurry, we don't have time for this. And like I still have memories of him standing at the start line, like with this shopping basket filled with food, because I was like, I don't have time to go back to the ban. You need to be quicker and bring stuff to me. And yeah, we were just like proper stressed in that first backyard, because you can be with that sort of turnaround time. And all that got removed. Yeah, it was now like, we're not going to get stressed about things like that. We're going to introduce like nap breaks. We're going to introduce downtime. We're going to take each loop at a time, and we're going to think about what's important on that loop. We're going to think of one thing that excites us on that loop, you know. So I would leave camp and think, right, what am I excited about for coming back on the next loop? And it could be something simple like, I'm excited about seeing my son Alex because he's going to be in the tent. vent, or I'm going to have a cup of tea, or I'm going to have one of these power naps for like 8 minutes or something. And when you go into night 2 and you have the option to come back for an 8-minute power nap, that proper excites you. I can tell you that's like really.
But it's
something to look
amazing.
forward
Like
to.
when you talk about like the 8-minute power nap, you think people will think, no, I wouldn't even go to sleep in that. But you can touch down and then you can wake up and go again, a reset of everything.
Yeah.
Can we talk about like your record breaking? So you're the British female record holder for backyard ultras. Can we go into specifics of how that race panned out, and little bits that you've learned on this journey that you used to do 35 yards? Is that right?
35, yeah.
35 yards. What I'm really intrigued about is the bit in between. The bit in between of what you're doing. Did you have like a set list of stuff that you did? Eat, drink, sit. What did that like, and how much time did you have? Did you make sure each lap was? I've got so many questions. You start talking and then I'll ask.
That's okay. In the one where I went for 35 yards, the loop was relatively flat, which was great, because obviously that means you can run it. It was trail. Yeah. It was a beautiful trail. It was down in Sherwood Forest, and it was a really lovely loop, and it was mainly flat. There was a couple of sort of small inclines, which became like Mount Everest on like lap 30, obviously. But so it was relatively flat, which meant that you could get round it quite quickly. We had talked about a rough time to complete each lap. So I think we were sort of aiming for definitely no faster than 45 minutes. So anywhere between sort of 45 and 48 minutes, which obviously sounds slow. And I think that's the thing about the backyard. On paper, it sounds really easy. You know, you're like, yeah, I can totally run 4 miles in 45 minutes. That's really slow. But towards the beginning of the race, that became important to not run faster than that, because obviously if you do run faster, then you're depleting your energy levels at an early stage. We did have that sort of rough time scale of about 45 minutes to complete the lap, which would then give you 15 minutes of admin time to get yourself sorted. And I think I pretty much stuck to that most of the way through. I think we sort of hovered between 45 and 48 minutes. Again, one of the things about loop races is I'm kind of like a metronome. I managed to just knock it out the same time every loop, regardless, you know, like from loop 1 to the end. I don't think there was a huge variance in the times that we ran the laps. And then that did give you some sort of good downtime to work through. We didn't have lists or sort of a plan or anything like that. Again, all of that was removed. And that was one of the things that I worked on with Marcus as well, is just like this super relaxed approach to racing, and just to go with the flow and just to see what I felt like on each loop. So each loop we would aim to sort of tick off one thing, if you like. So whether it would be nutrition on a loop, or changing clothes on a loop, or resting on a loop. So we wouldn't try and do all of it in the one go. Like we wouldn't come in for those 50 minutes and try and like eat and change and go to the toilet and you know, it would be none of that.
Make it last. You got loads of time. Back here soon.
That's what I do. I'd get in and I'd be like, right, I've got to do this quick. Repeat it all every time I finished a yard. But it's interesting.
So it was like 1 yard at a time and one focus for that yard. So as I said, what would excite me about that 1 yard, or what would I be looking forward to? So I would leave camp and I would say to Scott, like, on the next loop, I'm going to have something to eat. And again, we sort of removed a lot of the choice of eating as well, to sort of remove that mental fatigue of thinking too much about stuff. So I had certain things with us, and I would just say to Scott, I'm going to have something to eat, and he would just get something ready, and whatever he got ready, I would just eat, and we would just sort of roll with that. Or I would say to him, right, next loop I'm going to change, or next loop I'm going to get a foot massage, and you can like take my socks and shoes off. That was actually another really important thing that that we did, and again, it was Marcus that suggested that, was like every 4 loops roughly. So we had a sort of loose plan. So like every 4 or 5 loops, just get your socks and shoes off completely, even if you don't need to, and just let your feet air and just get Scott to rub your feet, which he hated doing because he absolutely hates feet, but he did it anyway, which was great. She loves going there. Yeah, and it would just be 1 loop at a time and just sort of focusing on that one thing to look forward to in each loop. For the record, yeah, that wasn't really sort of our target. As I say, it was important when we went into Sherwood Pines that we didn't have a set target. I knew I wanted to go further than I had done before. So I had done 29 yards at the Scottish backyard, which was in July. And just after the Scottish backyard in July, there was a team selected for, they do like a world championships at the backyard. So there's a team selected for every country. And that selection took place, I think it was in October last year. Yeah, the race took place in October last year. And the UK team consisted of 15 men. So they had selected 15 males to run for the UK team in the backyard. And I had sort of got in touch to say, look, what is the selection process? Why is there no females on the team? Why is it 15 men? And is there any way that we can work towards getting more females on the team? But basically they had said that what the sort of rules or selection process was is they would go down, there's like a list of people who've done backyards and there's a list of how many yards you've done. And they basically take each country and they go down that list and they select the 15 people that have ran the furthest distance. So the 15 people that had ran the furthest distance in the UK that made it onto the team was 15 males. And I asked, is there any way that they would ever consider making that a bit fairer for females so that we could get a spot on the team as well? And the reply I got back was, well, there's no difference between males and females in the backyard because we all compete on a sort of even setting in the backyard, because they sort of argued that speed and strength and endurance weren't as important in a backyard ultra as they are in other races, and therefore males and females compete on an even field in the backyard.
Is this from a man, presumably? This reply?
Yeah, I was wondering what the committee just full of men. No.
So I strongly disagreed, and I sort of politely replied to say that I strongly disagreed. That yes, I understand that the race format for the backyard is last one standing, and that's fine. That's the race format, and that's what I signed up for 100%. And it's the same as Barkley marathons. There's no like male-female split, and obviously Laz that sets up his races, that's what he does, and that's fine because that's what we enter when we choose to do that type of event. But the sort of point I was making was they were making a team selection for your country to compete for the event. So surely if they did a team selection, they should make it fair for female runners to be able to run for their country as well and give them a sort of ability to do that as well as men. So I suggested maybe they could make like a couple of spaces on the team available to female runners that they could get
old us. Just a couple. Yeah, we just have 2. You don't need to give us kit. We'll just turn up. We'll do the washing up in between our laps.
How can it motivate women to go for these things if they can't see women doing these things? It's absolutely insane, I think, in this day and age.
Yeah, and that was my point too, Gary. It was more about the motivation. At first, I was a bit upset by the reply, and then I realised that, again, through doing my sort of mindset and daily stoic, and I couldn't control what other people are doing, but all I could control is what I was doing. So I was never going to be able to control that decision-making process to sort of make them allow females to have a set number of places on that team. But what I could do is I could control my training and I could control my ability to run enough yards to get me on that team, and then hopefully motivate other females that could look and say, well, Kaz is 46 years old and she's a mum of 2 and she's managed to go out there and get herself on that team, so maybe I could do the same. So yeah, the record wasn't the motivating factor when I went into the race, but I knew from looking down the at-large list, which is the sort of list of people that have done backyard ultras, I knew from looking down that list that I had to get into the sort of 30 30-ish yards if I wanted to be in with a chance of getting selected for the team the next time the event takes place. So that was my big driving force when I went into the Sherwood Pines event, because I strongly believe that males and females don't compete on an even keeled at the backyard, because strength and endurance and speed are important. Like you could say on paper and say, well, speed's not important, you just need to do 4 miles in an hour. But when you go into the second night, speed is super important. If you're someone that can get round quickly, you can get that nap. If you're someone who's slower, you can't get that nap, and you can't deal with the blister on your foot, and you can't go to the toilet, or so speed and strength and endurance in the backyard are really important, and therefore males and females don't compete in the same level, because we're biologically different.
It's Absolutely. Just different, and that's fine. And their different strengths will play into the part of the race at different times within the race, and that again should be accepted. Tell me what it feels like when that whistle bell goes off and you've got 3 minutes to go. Tell me what goes through, like getting the body moving again if you have sat down, because that's the bit I think that would give me the most heebie-jeebies of like the stopping and then the getting started. You probably had the same conversation. Deb's always and me are like, we'll just do the whole multi-day. Let's not stop on these multi-days. Let's just keep going. How does the body feel like when you have to go over that start line again? Does it get super stiff and tired, or do you? Yeah, okay.
Yeah, it does. And when I did the event in March, it was the 2nd of March, and the temperature dropped to like -2 at night time. So getting back out there, you have no idea how awful the body felt at some points. Yeah, because if I did have like a sort of nap lap, my husband, he was amazing. Like he would have like everything laid out. I'd have my dry robe. I had a heated gilet that was like plugged in. I had heated gloves that were plugged in. I had my eye mask. I had my ear plugs. I had my silk pillowcase. I like sound like this complete princess. But yeah, anybody can rough it out. But Kaz went in there all in with the comforts, So especially on those laps when I'm on my silk pillowcase with my earplugs, my eye mask, and my heated gloves on, and that whistle goes, like I'm not joking. When I hear a whistle now, I do sort of jump, because the sound of that whistle would just sort of bolt me back into reality. But again, going back to the simulation weekends, I think that's what sort of programmed me into thinking, okay, time to get back out again. There was never like, oh, I might go, I might not. It was just like, okay, that's the whistle, let's go, it's time to get sorted. But yeah, I mean, I look back on some of the footage of me at the backyard, and I walk through the start line. Like when I start the loop, I don't start running. Like a lot of people start running, but because you're not really pushing your time the whole way through, I would just walk off the start line, and I would just let my sort of body warm up again. And I would maybe even just walk, even if it was only for like 20 or 30 steps. And again, it's just removing all that sort of mental side of, oh, well, they're all running, I've got to run, and let's all like race off this start line together. I would just let everybody go, and I would be like the last to leave, and I would just walk out of camp. And then once my body sort of started going and I stopped shaking, because a lot of the time I would be shaking because it was so cold, like when you stopped, and then just let your body heat up again. But yeah, there was never once where I thought, will I go or will I not? It was just always automatic, like there's the whistle, let's go back on the start line again. Yeah, and I think that's where the sort of mental training kicked in to enable me to do that. Yeah.
Amazing. And what was it that stopped you in the end?
So in the end, again, it's going back to these targets, isn't it? So I didn't have a target. As I say, I wanted to get on that team, but there was no sort of metric numerical target. I just knew I wanted to get sort of beyond the 30-ish. And then I think we got to about 31 or 32 yards, and the race director came over and said, Laz is tweeting about you, Karen. And I was like, what? And he's like, yeah, Laz is on tweeting, and you're really really close to the GB record. And if you get the GB record, they're going to invite you out to the Backyard Masters in Germany to compete out there. And I was just like, oh my goodness. So then I was like, right, what do we need to do? What is the record? And he said 35. And I was like, where are we? Because again, I don't count now on the Backyard. Like I had no idea what time of day it was or how many yards I was on. I just didn't count them down at all. And the race director said to me, I think he said we were at 31 or 30 or whatever it was. And I was like, right, okay, so I do 4 more or whatever, then we get to the record. And he was like, and then I had a target, didn't I? So as soon as I knew that, I had a target, and that's what I was aiming for. And at that point, there was only 2 of us left in the race. There was myself and a guy called Richard. And Richard had heard them talking about the record as well, and he came over and he's like, are you going to go for the female record? And I was like, well, I can only go for the female record if you're going to go for it with me, because as you said, you need that assist in the backyard. So you can only run 1 more loop than the previous person that stopped. So if Richard stopped at 31, I could only go to 32.
Raging.
So,
my goodness, yeah.
I said to him, will you go for the record with me? And he was like, 100%. I'd love to support you to that. He was just a really lovely guy. And I was like, that would be amazing. And I said, do you want to do a deal then? And he was like, yeah, what?
Do I? Yes.
I said, we'll go for the record at 35 together, and then I'll stop and you can take the win. I said, and I'll be really happy because I've got the GB record. You'll be really happy because you've got the win. And then all these beautiful people here can go to their bed and don't have to stay out for another night. And he kind of looked at me a bit confused and he was like, are you being serious? And I was like, absolutely. I said, I would be delighted if I could get the GB record. And he said, right, okay. And then we fist pumped on it and we ran the last 3 or 4 yards together, which was lovely. Yeah. And that's why I stopped. Mm-hmm.
What a story.
Yeah. I love that. And also I love that you stopped, you got the record and you stopped. And I know you all have been ruined. The satin pillowcase will have had all sorts of horrendous. Blah, blah. You will have been ruined, but you stopped. You set yourself that target and you stopped. Yeah. So you must be quite excited that there's more in there, because you weren't timed out. You were just like, you had control over that. I bet Coach loves that too, that you had control over that and you stopped. But
this is what I find fascinating. Again. You may never get a chance, depending on who's towing the line next time, you may never get a chance to build on that. The whole thing is crazy, but fascinating too. Are you going to take your place? Are you going to go to Germany?
I'm not. No, the race in Germany is on the 20th of May. And my husband Scott is doing an event in Scotland called the Cape Wrath Ultra. He's wanted to do that for... Yeah, I know. He did offer to defer his place, bless him. But yeah, I think when we do the backyard, it's not just about me racing. We're a team. Yeah. Like, there's no way I could do it without Scott. He's just like the best support. He knows me inside out. As I say, I would leave and I would just give like a random, I'm going to eat or I'm going to change or I'm going to whatever. And he would just sort everything in the background. So I would never want to do one without him. And because he was doing his race at Cape Wrath, I decided that I wasn't going to take up the place in Germany. And yeah, we'll wait and see. I would love to get on the UK team for the World Satellite Championships when they happen again. So whether my 35 will be enough to get me on it or not, I don't know. It just depends how other people perform in the backyard. But I have one more backyard in July this year that I'm doing in Scotland. And that's going to be my backyard swan song, I think, just to see how I get on with it. And
90 backyards. You said you do really well with a target. So I'm going to set you that and say, just keep going.
Yeah. So I'll do the one in July, and then I think, that'll be the last backyard that I'll do, unless I do get a spot on that team and I do get to compete in the sort of team event, which would be amazing if I did. But yeah, I think when you do a few of them, it becomes really hard at the beginning of the race, because even when I did the one at Sherwood Pines, like Marcus, my coach, had said to me, the race begins, Kaz, when you put on your head torch in the second night. So I knew I had to go all that way before racing even started, and that's hard. Like, you're running for a long time before. I think I was running for maybe 28, 29 hours before the race even started. And to do that time and time again, like to repeat that in the same sort of race format, that is tough going. So yeah, I think that's why I've decided that the one in July will be my last one.
I had the same, like when I was when Debs did the spine again, and now that I'm like, I don't know if I could stand on that start line again.
Knowing, you know what's coming.
I know what's coming. It's like childbirth. But we do that again, don't we? But you know what's coming, and so I think I admire people, the bravery that you've got all that. You've got all that journey ahead of you. Have you got, before we move on to park runs, have you got any top tips for anybody who's thinking about doing a backyard ultra? Where do they start? Any good events that you've done or heard about that might be good for beginners?
The one at Sherpa Pines is the best course that I've ran on. It's the flattest course, so that's one if you wanted to get a good distance. I think that definitely helps. The one I'm doing in July has got in Scotland here has got 480 feet of elevation per lap. So that obviously makes a big difference. You know, the one at Sherwood Pines, I think, was like 150 or something. It was relatively flat. So yeah, if you want to go a long way, the flatter the course, the better, obviously. Yeah. But I think the backyard lends itself to loads of different types of runners, which is what I love about it. Like at some of the events, you see people that'll run their first marathon because they just like that comfort of going out and being on the route and having no pressure, or they might run their first 50 miler or their first 100 miler. You know, it lends itself to lots of different types of runners, which is good. In relation to tips for training for it, I think the way that I trained for the most recent one definitely does help. So treating your training like the race, I didn't think that was a strategy before. You know, I would never have ran through the night because, like you said, Eddie, like the recovery time is too much, and does the benefit outweigh the cost of doing that? And it was always something that I would have said no to in the past, but now that I've done it, particularly for the backyard, and being able to sort of ingrain that mental fortitude of just getting back out there regardless, and to leave your home at like 4 or 5 in the morning when it's pouring a rain and it's freezing in Scotland, you know, that's great training. So yeah, I do think that mimicking the race format and training is really, really helpful. Yep. So I would recommend that too.
Signing up. You signing up, Gary?
A friend said he thinks I'd be quite good at it. In fact, there's no finish line in sight. Yeah. I'm not too sure how I'd cope with that. I'm really curious how the camp life changes as it gets quieter. If it's all chatty at the beginning, then it gets a bit more kind of psychological and mind games at the end. Yeah. So it is fascinating. And yeah, I think I should at least toe the line once. I think.
You should.
Finding toe, Gary.
Yeah. Where are you based, Gary? Where are you?
Northeast. And I know the guys from Greener Mile Running. So Greener Miles Running. So I could, hit Mark up, I'm sure. It's just happened, doesn't it? This is literally the weekend gone.
The Cowshed was on last weekend. Yeah, I did that one last year. I did the Cowshed one last year. And I seen that was on this weekend. It looked as if they had pretty horrific conditions for it, though. The mud looked awful. But
yeah, I've seen some photographs. It did not look very nice. But fascinating. I definitely think
love it. Yeah.
Oh, I don't know.
Go on, do it.
Oh no, don't say that because I'm so prone to signing up for stuff when I shouldn't. You set up a junior park run in Leven Grove, is that correct?
Yeah.
What? Yeah, it's phenomenal. It's fantastic that people are out there setting up park runs and junior park runs, and I'm a massive fan of park run. I don't know anybody who's got anything bad to say about park run, but what motivates you to start a park run?
I wasn't involved in park run at all until I started running junior park run. I run with a little girl who's blind. She's 11. Her name's Felicity, and I've been running with her since she was 8 years old. And that was my sort of first introduction to park run. As an ultra runner, running like a Saturday adult park run terrifies me. You know, the thought of running 5K fast is just like worse than 35 yards, I think, isn't it? It's just like, I can't do that. I can't go and run fast.
You can't walk the first 10 yards of that.
Exactly. So yeah, I started running with Felicity through the local primary school. I took the cross country team there. It was the primary school that my boys went to. So I took the cross country team there for, I don't know, maybe about 8 years or something. I would take them training every Friday afternoon. And one day the teachers had said to me that they had a little girl that was sight impaired and she loved running, but nobody could keep up with her anymore because she had sort of turned 8 and she was just wanting to run further and faster.
Yeah.
And would I be able to start running with her? And obviously I was like, yeah, absolutely, 100%. So I started guide running with Felicity. And yeah, just sort of as she got quicker and wanted to go a bit further, I thought about taking her to a junior park run. I think it was actually Debbie, my friend, that suggested it to us because she did junior park run up in Glasgow with her son Karen. And I suggested that to Felicity. We didn't have a local one here where we are. So we would go up to the Glasgow junior park run at Victoria Park, and Felicity just loved it. You know, she loved obviously not being able to see. For her, the importance was hearing the support. And when we would run on our own, she wouldn't get that. But when she would go to junior park run, you know, she would hear people cheer for her. She would hear like the footsteps of people running past her. That sort of competitiveness would kick in as well. Like I would talk her through it and I would be like, you're doing great and we're overtaking another person here and we're going round the pond. And I would just sort of talk her through it and she just loved it. And we would always go for like a hot chocolate on the way home. We would go into Starbucks and have a hot chocolate. And it just became like a really lovely morning out for us on a Sunday. And one Sunday on the drive home, she said to me, I love it. I would love it, Karen, if we had one of these where we live. Why don't we have one near us? Well, we live in Balloch, but why don't we have one like in our area? And I was like, oh, I don't know why we don't have one. And she was like, do you think we could have one? And I was like, I don't know, but I'm going to find out. And that was the sort of catalyst to get it moving. And as I say, I didn't know very much about parkrun because I hadn't been involved in it. But I had a friend who was the event director of our 5K locally. So she had set up the Saturday one. And I got in touch with her, my friend Anna, and she was just an amazing support at putting me in touch with the right people and what to do and sort of guiding me through the process. You need to raise quite a significant amount of money to get parkrun up and running, because you need to buy like a defibrillator, you need to sort of pay parkrun to get access to like the scanning system, and like there was quite a significant investment involved. So we had to do some sort of fundraising or like reaching out to people to support it. So the local council were great. They gave us a big chunk of money to put towards it. And I also reached out to a charity called the Chris Smith Memorial Fund. Chris Smith was a GB trail runner who very sadly passed away when he was out on a trail run one day in Scotland. I think sort of bad weather had came in and it was pretty tragic. And his family set up a memorial trust in his name. And the purpose of the memorial trust was to encourage young people in running events and to be able to support them. So I had got in touch with the Memorial Trust to say that I was guide running with Felicity and that we wanted to set up junior park run, and they got back in touch with me straight away. In fact, it was actually the day that I got married that they called me. It was the morning of my wedding, and they called me to say that they would love to support us with junior park run. So they gave us some of the funding as well, which was lovely. And since then, Chrissy's sister and his mum and dad have been down, and his niece and everything, they've been along to park run, and it's just been so special. You know, it's been lovely for us to give that to them, that they can now see that their son's memory lives on, and like all these children running around the park every Sunday. And that's just it's just made it so so special. And they love hearing about Felicity, so I'll sort of send them wee updates and just let them know how she's doing. And like, she ran school cross country recently. Again, I had to tape her for that race. It was like the 1 mile school cross.
I was going to ask, like, now as she's getting older, is it? Do you get a bit? I'd be starting to get a little bit nervous, especially the start. I'd need like, Felicity, you wait here. I'm going to need a 10K warm up.
That's exactly what it is now. Like on Sunday, we picked her up and she got in the car and she was like, "Morning, Karen, we're going to do a PB at parkrun today." And my heart just sank. I was like,
oh my goodness. Sounds super gutty though, because it's really hard to do cross countries, and if you're visually impaired, then my goodness, me underfoot.
Yeah, she had said that when we first started running together, because she knew that I trained the cross country team, and she said, "Do you think I could ever get selected for cross country?" And I was like, 100%, you can. You can definitely get on that team, regardless. And that was her motivation to kind of train and keep up her running, because she wanted to run for her school, and she's done that twice now. She's competed in the cross country twice, and I run with her. And yeah, and I do run kind of a bit scared, because cross country's hard, right? You know, it's that sort of muddy, really busy event. I'm terrified in case I fall, never mind anything else. She's just so confident now. Like, she just stormed through the field in the last cross country that we did a couple of months ago. And she's getting really brave now that she likes to finish all her races on her own. So we run with a tether where she holds one side and I hold the other. Or sometimes we hold hands. She'll say, "Let's just hold hands today, Karen," and that's fine. But when she finishes, she now asks to run on her own. So I don't hold her and I don't sort of have the tether. She just runs free. And yeah, it's really special just to see her wee face. And she literally shouts, she's shouting, "I'm running free, I'm running free, look at me, look at me." And she just storms down that finish line. Whereas like my heart rate's through the roof, because I'm like running behind her, making sure that she's okay. So yeah, Felicity was the inspiration to set up Junior Park Run. And the Chris Smith Memorial Fund have been a big part of that as well. Yeah, we're really grateful to them that they were able to support us too. So it's been the most wonderful experience. As someone who wasn't a park runner, you know, I've ran for many years and I would class myself as a runner, but I was someone who was never involved in park run from a running side.
Yeah.
But now being involved from an event setup side and from a volunteer side, I see that parkrun is way more than just about the running. You know, like the running is maybe 5% of parkrun.
Yeah.
It's all the sort of social side of it. It's what it brings to people. It's the inclusiveness. It's the volunteering. You know, like we have a woman, I think she's 82, Rose, and she volunteers for us every Sunday. You know, she comes along every Sunday and she just loves being part of parkrun. And we put her in the same marshal spot every week. We now call it Rosie's Corner, and the kids run past Rosie's Corner and they'll shout, "Thank you, Rose." And you just see in her face that that's so important to her.
For some people, that community is just pretty powerful on the Saturday morning. They may not be doing anything that would connect them with people on the Saturday. So yeah, like you said, probably the running is only about 5% of how it is for some people.
And just to have children sort of out exercising and being outdoors, and you know, we have a lovely wee group of the sort of same kids that come along every week. We get some new people each week as well, which is great, but we have this sort of core group, and just to see how much they enjoy it and how much they improve week on week. And like the variety is great as well. Like we have kids who go for the course record, you know, like they can run 2K in like 7.5 minutes or something. You know, it's ridiculous.
Disgusting.
And then we have other wee girls that come and run with their teddies, you know, or their doll tucked under their arm.
I'm there. I'd be there. Gary'd be there with his doll.
Yeah, but it normalises it. It really normalises it. No matter what you want out of running, they can visualise themselves doing it. So they could be that girl with the teddy, or they could be that person smashing it. It really doesn't matter. It's a wonderful thing.
Yeah, and for Felicity, it's great because she knows the course now. So obviously she can't see, and I often think how brave she must be, you know, like if you close your eyes and think, how could I run without being able to see anything around me? But the fact that she runs in the same course every Sunday, she knows it really well now. So I don't even need to sort of pull her round a turn or anything. She knows when she's turning. She feels comfortable on that route, and it's great for that reason as well.
Has she said to you yet, "I want to do a 10K"? You're going to be upping this mileage on you? She's actually doing a 5K next month for charity. There's a lovely charity called Victa that they support children with visual impairments, and they take them away on like weekends to the Lake District, and she learns
lessons, like how to make her own packed lunch and go out and canoe to an island and have a picnic. And that's all supported by this charity. So she said to me that she would like to fundraise for them. So she's doing a 5K next month for that. And yeah, she's been desperate to run a marathon since I first met her, but we're just trying to hold her back, and say like, yeah, once your wee body's old enough to cope with that kind of distance, we will definitely do it. But yeah, she's building up now. So
Gosh,
what a superstar.
She lucky to have met you and have you.
I'm so lucky to have met her. She's brought so much to my life. And it gave me a running purpose again. It was not long after my injury that I met Felicity, and it gave me that reason to get back out there and get my running back on track, because now I need to be good enough to try and keep up with her for a marathon.
My God. Well, do ask her if she wants to share her fundraising on over on our Facebook page.
Thank you.
Do share it over there, because I'm sure lots of people will be listening to this story.
Very kind. Thank
being
you.
Inspired by both of you. What's next then? You touched on it a little bit earlier about what you're doing for the rest of this year. And you've got the Battersea track in October.
Yeah, I think it's the 1st of October, so that's a 24-hour track race.
Anything before that? Or you just...
I've got the Backyard Ultra in July in Scotland.
Yeah.
And then that'll be it. Yeah, so there'll be the 2 races.
Two biggies, head-to-head with Martin Consani on the track.
Yeah.
I
don't know about that. She'll be doing her thing and I'll just be holding on for dear life to see if I can hang on in there. But yeah, it'll be lovely to go and do it together. It'll be nice to have that company.
So nice. Yeah, nice to do that sort of thing. Which number are you on the Swiftie album right now?
Exactly. We'll be plugged in. I know.
Plugged in. I love it.
I'm looking forward to that. And we'll do some training towards it as well on the track. We've done that before. I think Debbie was training for 100 miles on the track, and I would go and meet her and we would do like a random track marathon on a Saturday, just to sort of get used to that looping round the track. But yeah, it's going to be a big switch in mindset for me to go from the backyard training to 24-hour track training, because although they do sound similar, they're very, very different. There'll be no silk pillowcase, there'll be no heated gloves, there'll be no napping. And I think I'll find that hard to go back into that sort of concept.
But I think it's good. Change it up, and you seem to work quite well with changing it up a little bit. And so time for a little bit of a change in training stimulus and a change in racing stimulus. We look forward to following you.
Fresh.
Keep it fresh,
Keeping
like
it
us,
fresh.
Gary. I keep you at a distance just to keep it fresh.
Okay, should we do our quick questions to end the show, end of the podcast? What is your favourite month of the year?
Oh, spring. So it would be like March, April.
Yeah, I do like that time of year when as things are coming to life. I love that time of year.
When you put the head torch away and you start to be able to run in the light again.
That is a magical time.
Yeah.
What would be the ingredients in your perfect sandwich?
Cheese, tomato, and mayonnaise. I had loads of them on the backyard.
Oh, that's good. A little bit of salt. I had a little bit of
definitely
salt.
a little bit of salt and pepper.
Yeah, I'd share that. I'd eat that actually while you're out running.
Yeah.
Yeah, you don't crew, Eddie. Someone puts a pineapple on your pizza. Are you happy or raging?
Raging. Definitely wrong. Pineapple should only be cold. Always.
Oh, I could eat a warm bit of pineapple.
I'm not fussy. Yeah, I'd go that. Anything on a pizza apart from anchovies. Something like that.
I do love pizza, but not pineapple. Yeah. And leftover pizza on a run is the best. I was into just that when we did the recce down at the Arc down in Cornwall. We had leftover pizza on the beach, and it's now a thing. So I had leftover pizza up a hill yesterday, and it was
nice.
Yeah.
Pizza's just good anytime.
Pizza is just amazing.
Yeah. What is your favourite thing to spend money on?
Activewear. Sweaty Betty, Lululemon. Yeah. All my disposable income goes to Sweaty Betty, unfortunately. Yeah.
That's the only thing I get excited about, running kit or race entries. That seems to get me excited. Yeah. What is one board game you can beat anyone at? Or that's a bit too competitive, maybe your favourite board game?
Oh, Oh, it would need to be Monopoly.
Good. Well, I'll take you on for that one.
Mm-hmm.
Mayfair Park Lane, get it in, get those houses on, you're all going down.
Yeah.
What's your tactic for Monopoly?
Just to try and beat my children.
As quickly as possible, because it's a long game. So I'm like,
spend all the money.
Spend all the money. Come on. And when the kids are like, no, I'm not going to buy it. I'm like, well, if you don't start buying stuff, we're going to be here for days.
Yeah.
Start buying stuff.
Exactly. Although it has been a long time since we've played
your kids, that Monopoly's in the cupboard now.
Yeah.
Mine's upstairs with like half the bits missing, the houses everywhere. Because someone's thrown it across the bedroom, gone, it won't play anymore.
Raging. That was you, Eddie.
Yeah. Yeah.
Every week we share the podcast over on Instagram, and for our Instagram story, you get the choice of the music, Karen. What song or an artist, or you could leave it up to Eddie or myself to pick.
If it's an artist, it's got to be Taylor Swift.
Ooh,
a bit of Swift.
I get you. Do you have a particular song?
I just love all of her music, so I'm happy for you to pick whatever you want. But yeah, it's got to be a Swiftie song for sure.
Okay, I'm going to go some deep into some of her albums, some of her earlier stuff.
Yeah, we plug into Swiftie when it gets hard.
When it gets hard. Not too early. You can't go Swiftie too early, or else it all goes, it's got to be at the right point.
Yeah.
She's super helpful.
Well, what a joy. It's been a lovely hour chatting away with you, Karen. I've super duper enjoyed that. Really inspirational. Just a breath of fresh air. Thank you.
I've loved it too.
Thank you so much. Thank you. Thank you so much. Good luck with everything. And so glad the house looks in one piece.
Yeah.
Who knows what they'll have made for lunch.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Speak to you soon. Bye.
Take care. Bye. I really enjoyed that. Just such an inspirational woman, crushing the backyard ultra format, setting up a park run. But it is important that women and young girls see other women doing all these things. So yeah, it's really good to see people like Karen out there crushing it.
I sometimes wonder if perhaps my role model to my small girl is a little skewed, and I'm creating a monster as she is pretty tough and nails. And I go, you can take a break, you can stop. And she's like, I'm not quitting. I'm not quitting. And I'm like, I tried really hard and not even on this Strava. I think I might set up my own Strava group with just me on it.
We'll keep it quiet. But again, Rafa took the top of the chart.
Unless he lets us follow him, I'm going to start. He's discounted.
Well, yeah, I did click on his profile, and you need to request a follow, so I couldn't find out what he's been up to. But 189 miles again. Howard Seal, 27 hours and 52 minutes and 56 seconds. Now, Howard took the win at the Greener Miles Running Cowshed Backyard Ultra. So that's amazing. 134.99 miles. Well done, Howard. I made the trophy for the Cowshed Backyard Ultra. So I hope...
Sorry, Howard. I hope it makes it home and it doesn't break. And
oh, yeah.
I hope there's no typos.
Well, good, yeah. It could be. 2022. But yeah, well done, Howard. And I hope you like your trophy too. John Keat, 22,500 feet of elevation. Now, I saw John. I could check on John's Strava, what he's up to. And he mentioned it was the last training camp, but I'm not too sure what it's for. I'm assuming it's one of the UTS races.
Coming up thick and fast next week.
Yeah. But well done, everybody over Strava. Over 1,000 people crushing it over there now, Eddie. It is a growing community. Lovely to see.
Yeah, it'll be lovely till I set up my own leaderboard, and then we'll see. Tales from the Trails. We love the Tales from the Trails. This is a clean Tales from the Trails if people are listening with children in the car. Dave Alano, the Spine Race series have a very demanding kit list, and there's a good reason for this. You too right. I've only had experience of one hypothermic casualty, and this was on the Challenger. Pretty safe to say that no one really plans to sleep out on the Challenger. Challenger is still a massive part of the Spine Race. If anyone's not listening, you either do the south or the north version of the Spine. So you're still looking at plus 100 miles. So you still have to carry your sleep system of your compulsory sleeping bag, mat, and bivy bag, whereas quite a few people I think do it without using those. Whereas on the spine, after a few days, the sleep sniper can get you at any time. I like the idea of the sleep sniper. On the Cam Road, which funnily enough, we talked about with Lizzie our last podcast. I didn't see the Cam Road because it was the middle of the night in a snowstorm, but probably less than 8K to the finish. It is endless. Finish near Hawes, myself and the 2 lads with me came across a hypothermic casualty. He was with a couple of others and was very confused. He thought he'd been kidnapped and was being held hostage. And demanded to call the police. It was quite unnerving. Oh, how frightening. He had succumbed after a night of heavy rain and bad kit decisions, which I can't speculate on, but he was in his sleeping bag. I volunteered to stay with him while the others went for help. We were in one of the only areas with no phone signal, which didn't help. It was still raining, so I got out my sleeping mat, sleeping bag, and bivy bag, took off my top layers, and climbed in. Top tip, carry a plastic shopping bag to put your feet in unless you plan on staying long enough to take off kits, to take off boots and shoes. Excellent tip.
Good tip.
I think I just put mine straight into my sleeping bag. I was trying to convince him to stay put. However, he was determined to get up and carry on. So on the basis if he did worsen, we would be closer to assistance. And to be honest, I couldn't physically stop him. I packed up my gear and all his stuff went into a large plastic bag, which had been lining his rucksack. The rain had eased off. And as we made our way down the track, I was keeping him talking to constantly assess him. He began to make more sense and was coming round and was soon able to carry his own stuff and understand what had happened. At the bottom of the track, a couple of miles down and on the edge of Hawes was a 3-sided small barn in the corner of a field. Great place for a brew and keep dry while waiting for pickup. The next problem was the gate had been tied up with thick nylon cord in all sorts of knots that weren't going anywhere. Out came the knife, another compulsory item, and we were through the gate. The transport then arrived before I could get the kettle on. The last bit of kit to mention is capacity to carry 2 litres. I, like many others, had a couple of 500ml soft flasks with water, Coke, sports drinks. I also had a 1 litre aluminium bottle in my bag. Many people will see this as an opportunity to save carrying a kilogram they can get away with, especially if you're going for that podium finish. I'd carried the bottle full of water and then was in a position to make a hot drink if required. What I'm saying is that whatever you think of any kit list, it's all there for a reason. I didn't imagine I'd use a sleeping kit, knife or water, but there you go. Thanks, Dave.
Can you imagine being that out of it? You'd think you've been kidnapped.
Yes, totally. I totally can imagine being that out of it. And I have every sympathy with him. I hope that guy, I know there was another guy at the end of the spine who had the same experience over the Cheviots, that he thought he was being chased. And I remember being just before the Cheviots and convincing myself that the head torch coming up behind me was somebody chasing me. I remember,
yeah.
It's a really horrible feeling. And I think I used everything in my kit bag, even though I said I would never use my stove. I think I did use it twice. I know that Leon carried extra water. I didn't carry extra water, but we did melt snow on the last bit to make up water. But I would imagine you definitely need to carry extra water on the summer spine. I think you have to as well. If you have tales from the trails, send them over to us at hello@tntrails.com.
Competition. Thanks to our friends Big Bobble Hats, we have 2 big bobble hats up for grabs. One for you and one for a friend. Lovely jubbly.
Lovely jubbly. Oh, the things we could say.
But what do you need to do?
What do you need to do, Gary? Tell me quick, because I actually haven't done it because you keep saying you can't enter.
You can't enter. Oh, well, 1, you need to be a member of the Tea and Trails Facebook group.
I'm
2,
not. Okay.
Tag a friend who you think deserves a big bobble hat. And 3, share the post with your community too. We'll pick a winner at random on Monday the 15th. And we'll announce it during episode 22.
Those dates and episodes numbers are probably all wrong, but just do the deets, do the competition, and then we'll let you know.
But don't forget, if you can't wait, you'll get 15% off for being a Patreon over at bigbobbleHats.co.uk. Yeah, good luck, everybody.
Gary, I know what's going to make you feel better.
Well, emotionally. Not physically. It's not a cold remedy, is it?
Okay, all right.
Sorry. Throw that back at you. Sorry.
Right back at you. Well, just read them out then, okay? And we'll just see how you go.
Well, first 5-star review is from Doc. Amazing podcast. I love this podcast. Gary and Eddie have great chats and guests, and the guests are great too. It's even funnier that I love it when you realize I don't even run. Crying, laughing face emoji. Maybe one day I will be inspired. I mean, hope so, Loy.
Yeah, but also with limited chat about running, there's all sorts of other chat as well. Running's overrated. It makes you really tired and grumpy. I think you're doing great.
Let us know. Reach out, Loy, if you ever do go for a run. I'd love to hear.
Get your supplements in if you do before you even start. So I actually might start the kids on all these supplements now, just preloading for the years of pain ahead they're going to have.
Yeah.
Flat Badger, excellent podcast. Straight to the point, no messing around. Love it. Recently discovered this podcast. You're one of our binge listeners, aren't you? Been really enjoying it. Good chat, good interviews, good length, and great for long runs. Thanks. Just kept it succinct there. They
are good for long runs. I sometimes think when it's 2 hours, it's like,
Gary, it's long. Last week, I'm afraid it's 2 hours and oh my gosh. So sorry, everybody. It's so long. No wonder people are like, I haven't quite caught up yet.
Well, that'll teach us for taking a week off, won't it? We said more to catch up on. Last one this week is from 2001 Oddity, informative and entertaining with a well-balanced mix of stimulating chit-chat, riveting guests and thought-provoking ideas. This is a brilliant podcast for everyone from your first 10K through to the experienced ultra runner. Good work, guys. Keep it up. Oh, thanks for that.
Thank you, everybody who has written us a review or perhaps like, share, subscribe, follow. Keep them coming in.
Okay, Eddie, what have you got coming up?
I'm going to, I've got a few limited childcare options for the end of this week. So I'm going to blitz myself. I've got all kids in educational institutions, which is a rare thing on Thursday and Friday. So I'm going to run. I'm going to do 2 double long runs and ruin myself because then over the weekend I haven't got a lot of time. So is that wise? I don't know, but I'm going to do it and enjoy being out. Weather's quite nice and the snow is melting. So I'm going to go on some trails I've not run on and get the miles in that way. So a quiet week, probably won't then do a second workout. Because that will be tiring enough.
That's a lot, isn't it?
That's a lot for my rusty old legs.
I might even look on Strava Thursday, Friday, see how they...
You are straight on Strava every run I do. You are there. Ooh, Eddie, what have you done? I like
kudos.
What about you? What are you going to tell me that you're going to do and then you don't actually do? Let's get this down.
I'm not going to predict anything this week. I'm going to give myself a bit of grace. Suck it and see. Main priority is good sleep, and it's out of my hands to a certain extent, but hopefully my heart rate variability gets back in the green. That's the goal. I'll run. I'm going to run Rex. I ran this morning, but it'll be super easy. Maybe some strides at most. We'll just say I did this before. I could try a workout, and if it's okay, I'll carry on. If it's not, I'll just bin it off. But what is good, I wasn't going to do this. All County Tops is not, although I've got a lot invested in it emotionally. It's not an air race. I was going to carry on just training as normal. That would be a big long run for that week, all basically for Dragon's Back race. But with Teenager the other week, that could have been my last, say, hard session run before All County Tops. So maybe now that I'm feeling poorly, I'll go on a little mini taper for All County Tops and
reword it.
Yeah. So I might do that. Then that kind of ties in well with just taking the intensity down for the next few weeks and coinciding with this cold. It could serve me well. I'm going to be kind to my future self. I think that's what I'll take. I felt really bad because you did say that, but when Lizzie said it had more gravitas.
I did say it. She gave credit to John, and rest in peace, John, but it was, I'm sorry, I wasn't going to let you take the credit, John. It was mine. It was mine, but I stole it from somebody else. So I thought we're going to all steal it from somebody else.
But I'm also going to be tidying up my form down the gym. The instructor, it was a positive critique. He didn't call me out. He was like, oh no, your form is rubbish. He just said I should when I was doing my reverse lunges, my knee wasn't touching the ground. It wasn't going low enough. So I just need to try and get about 3 inches deeper on my, Eddie, every week, God damn it.
It was the specifics. I just need to get 3 inches deeper and it's going to be so much better.
So I took about 5.
No one cares now.
10 kilos up the bar to get the weight down and improve the form. But wow, when your knee hits the ground and you've got to go up from that, it's a lot. And a lot of exercises, I know your calves are important, I know your hamstrings are important, but it's sometimes hard to visualize how that plays into trail running. A reverse lunge or a forward lunge, when you kind of got your hands on your knees, climb from a mountain, that is so specific for that event. So yeah, I enjoyed the fact he was very positive. He was very nice. He was encouraging me the way
go deeper.
3 inches deeper he wanted.
Wow.
So yeah, we'll work on my form down the gym. And I'm also with my hamstring curls, trying to increase the range of motion with that too. Just taking the weight off and just being a bit better. Sometimes it's easy to just chuck more weight on.
Oh, yeah. Form over everything in life generally.
So is that working on that? And I went to the gym yesterday, so it's a good start. The bank holiday is great because you don't have to be at work. Don't feel guilty. So I could got my weights in on a Monday, so I feel like I'm winning. I'm ahead of the week. Good luck to Manny Foyster, who previous guest of the show. She's currently running from Land's End to John O'Groats. So self-supported. So basically, don't go and run with her or anything like that or offer any treats on the route. That is not allowed for this. I'm not too sure if she's trying to set an FKT or it's a personal challenge, but I know it's a self-supported attempt. So yeah, best of luck, Mandy. That is
good luck,
so
Mandy.
Yeah. I've seen the backpack. It is big.
Oh my God. Do you think she has a sleep system and a stove and a knife?
I hope so. I wonder what the rules are with self-supported. Could you, because it's open to everybody, could you go into like a Premier Inn or a Travel Lodge or something? Or is it literally side of the road? We'll find out.
Someone will find some deets, I'm sure. Thanks for listening all the way to the bitter end. You rock. Thanks to our partners and patrons. Pop over to Patreon, check out all the discount codes. One last favor to ask. Be kind to your future self. And while you're being kind to your future self, don't forget to share, subscribe, follow. That would be ace.
That's it. Another show in the bag. Stay safe on the trails, run wise, run well, and don't overdo it. Listen to your body and make sure you refuel with lots of tea and decaffeinated coffee. We won't judge. My name is Gary Thwaites.
Sorry, it's a decaffeinated coffee threw me. I'm Eddie Sutton.
And that was, I'm pretty certain it was episode 20 of the Tea and Trails podcast.